reaching up for relief. Little me, don't you cry. Let me wipe your eyes. Though the scars may linger, I'm with you through the times, through the waves and the pain. I feel you, I see you. Hold on, little me.
Fading out. Oh, Donna, that's beautiful. That's Donna singing.
Thank you.
Gorgeous. All right. Well, I think some people will sort of float in as we get going, but thank you all so much for coming tonight to our book club event featuring Donna Hayes. I'm going to let Janina introduce, but let me just quickly introduce Janina. This is Janina's second book club event that she's led for us, and I'm so grateful and so happy that you're back doing this again. Janina is an award-winning audiobook narrator. She's a writer with essays published in the Ethel, and you've got like a bunch of places. I always think of the Ethel, but they're in several places. Yeah. And is working now currently on I'm gonna mute, you're not muted, and is working now on a memoir and two different versions of a memoir, right? Yeah. So anyway, I felt like I just felt like this is like I'm glad you guys are going to have this in conversation. So thank you so much for doing this. And without further ado, here is Janina.
Hi, everybody. And I'm gonna spotlight Donna. I'm gonna read her bio from the back from her book jacket from These Broken Roads. That means I have to take off my glasses. So, New York City resident and performer Donna Marie Hayes can be found on a stage or in front of a camera and is a SAG-AFTRA actress and cabaret singer. Her corporate life includes serving as a senior human resources professional in the financial services industry. As an ICF certified coach, she owns a coaching practice dedicated to helping women shed victimhood for empowerment. From the Tamron Hall show to syndicated radio to podcasts, Donna's story has resonated with women across the country. Donna added that she's most recently been moving into the keynote speaker space, so coming to a stage near you. She'll be opening conventions and conferences and other things. Jocelyn, I have on the book jacket, I'm assuming you have the book right there, right? There's a little blurb from you, and it would be really weird for me to narrate that. Would you like to read that?
I actually don't have the book with me because I brought it to the AWP and it's in the box with all my
okay. Stuff. Well, I'm going to be Jocelyn.
Thank you.
And if you haven't read the book, this gives you some sense of it. These Broken Roads is Hayes' Cinderella story, beginning in the Jamaican countryside and ending in an uptown penthouse. It is a journey from betrayal to self-discovery. It is a coming of age that is at once human and hopeful. Hayes' life, though complicated by duplicity, is consistently buoyed by a strength and competence that is, in moments, breathtaking. Pick up this book. You will not be able to put it down. And that was Jocelyn's words. So, welcome, Donna. I'm clapping in my house by myself. Okay. So, I have a couple of questions, and they kind of segue to conversation with Jocelyn, because Jocelyn is your writing coach for this project. So she'll probably jump in appropriately at any moment now. But so my first question, which to me may sound obvious, but we want to make sure people understand. Why did you write this book?
I get that question quite often. So right after the incident, the impetus for actually writing the book, I've always been one who journaled a lot, as far back as I can remember. And after it happened, I just felt I just had to get it out. Mm-hmm. And I thought writing would be the way to do it. And I just Googled writing class because everything was so fresh. And that's how I stumbled upon Jocelyn. So when I entered the class, I had a tremendous amount of apprehension because I thought this story is so heavy that, what will people think? How will people receive it? And then it was such a welcoming community because everyone has a story. And people share their stories and what they experienced and what they were writing about. And that just put me at ease. And then we just went chapter by chapter by chapter, working with Jocelyn. And then it all came together and I felt ready to kind of put it out there. But it all started with the need for this cathartic experience.
And maybe possibly plugging, was that within Prose Playground? Hint, hint, no.
No, it was a long time before. It was like my second class that I ever taught, actually, or something like that.
That's interesting. All right.
So, Luann was in it, who's here today. Donna, do you remember Luann?
Hi, Donna.
Oh my God. Hi.
Hi. We'll catch up after, but I'm very excited.
I was trying to get Stephen to come too. I was trying to.
Oh, Stephen. Yes. Anyway, very fun.
So my next question is, how did you write the book? You kind of alluded to it a little bit there, but the full question is, do you write, or did you write? Because you may have changed your process now, but did you work from an outline? Basically, are you a plotter or are you a planner?
Very interesting. I think in Jocelyn's class, each week we all had the booth. And you remember, we had the booth and we'd write a chapter, and whatever was heavy on my heart and mind that particular week, I wrote that chapter. And before you knew it, I had all these different chapters, may not be sequentially or in chronological order, but I had all these chapters. So depending on what I was writing about, I was able to kind of form chapters and eventually put them all together. If that
so yes, that so they weren't, because that was written right here, were they in this order? What I should say, were they in the order they ended up in the book, the final form?
No. I just wrote all the different chapters and we decided how to integrate them after.
Okay. And I don't know why I'm thinking this. What was the first one that you got out that you needed to get out? If you remember. Jocelyn knows.
I don't. I know we did the Seven Sunsets one with the chicken blood. I know that was early on, but I'm not sure if that was the first one.
It's a very memorable one.
Yeah.
So you wrote those chapters. If my experience bears any witness what you've done. So, and then you expanded them in response to class comments or Jocelyn's comments, or?
Yes. After writing each chapter, I would get feedback from different folks in the class, and they would share their thoughts, and some I agreed with and some I would not have agreed with, but whatever I felt, informed or added to the chapter, I would then make those changes. But ultimately, it's kind of what resonated with me, what I wanted to convey. And then, after the class, I think shortly thereafter, starting with the first chapter, we would go back and forth between Jamaica and New York, and then converge at the very end.
Okay. So my next question, again, you're kind of alluding to this, and Jocelyn is welcome to jump in. Talk about how you worked together. I mean, you had the class and you had these chapters and getting feedback, but my experience is a book is going to be bigger than one class. So what other elements did your coaching process include?
Well, I mean, we would have different calls and different conversations, and where we would talk about the different chapters. And quite often, Jocelyn would advise me to maybe add a little bit more here, make something clearer here, or make this more fluid, or make it connect more. And we would kind of go back and forth until we had a finished project.
Okay. Anything you want to add, Jocelyn, on that?
The process, I mean, it was one of the first books I ever worked on from beginning to end with someone. And so it was, I couldn't have gotten luckier. Like, it was really a beautiful book, even, before I got my hands on it. But I felt like it really, yeah, we would meet up, we would do like one-on-ones where it was Zoom, right? We were mostly Zooming at that point. Yeah.
During COVID.
And we would just kind of we would go through chapter by chapter. And then I think finally you had it at a stage where I went through the book by myself. Yep. And then, yeah. So.
And then I started pitching and nothing's happening. And then I decided to self-publish. So then I hired a company to actually go through and make additional edits and revisions. And after then Jocelyn said to me, hey, I've heard about this publishing company. You should pitch to them. I'm like, all right, fine. I'll pitch to one more. And I pitched and I spoke with them maybe on a Wednesday. And by the following day, they accepted.
Oh, okay, exciting. Yeah. What was exciting? So when in your process, I mean, you were Zooming, you were writing. Did you ever do like, I hear some people like, I don't know, they print it out. Do you print it out and like look at things that way, or do you know what I'm talking about?
I did print it out, absolutely, because I work better when I actually have it. But one of the things that actually helped me is during the class, my fellow writers would write feedback or notes of encouragement on these little color-coded, I guess you call it, these color-coded notes, like 3x5 cards or something like that, or Post-its. I don't remember exactly. I still have them. And whenever I would write, I would like literally surround myself with those Post-its. And whenever I felt as if, girl, what are you doing? Can you do this? I would read notes from whether it's Jocelyn or whether it's from Luann or whether it's from others who, were championing me and giving me such amazing encouragement. That was really a very real part of the process for me, because it was COVID and you're in lockdown and you're all by yourself and I was all by myself in my apartment, and I really pulled from that. And I thought that really helped me in kind of putting it all together.
Yeah, it takes a village.
Yeah.
In my experience, you get a lot of well-meaning rejection. How many queries did you send out?
But I would think maybe somewhere between 12 and 15. So
Okay.
That many, I guess. I don't know in the grand scheme of things if that's a lot, but between about 12 and 15.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say that's tiny, but I will say if anyone who's ever taken the book proposals class, I often will teach Donna's query, because your first query was positioned around the scam, the
Right.
phishing scam,
Right,
and
right.
then but you were getting a lot of feedback that was like but we've seen a lot of catfishing. So you changed nothing, but then you just repositioned
Correct.
the query. And I always tell people that story. And then people were more interested and
People were more interested. And, that was not the original title. The original title was, if you remember, The Red Veranda. And then it was Last Run Along These Broken Roads. But the publisher wanted to put in the scam because they thought that would attract more people, like, oh, let's read about a scam.
Interesting. How was that process? Because I believe, and I don't know how to say Sibylline.
Sibylline Press.
How was that? I believe they're a hybrid publisher. Am I making that up? So what was that like? What was that like for you?
My first experience, I did not know what to expect. And I got on a call with the team at Sibylline, and it was actually a wonderful experience. I was very cautious because that was kind of my mindset at the time, but it was a great experience. I had an entire team that handled everything for me for the most part. We signed a contract, and they had us do an offsite where they taught us how to present while you're in the bookstore, or how to handle book signings and things of that nature. Had someone that helped you to manage and handle social media. Had someone help you to just kind of the whole process, and really explained what it meant. So I got on regular calls with them because I had a lot of questions as I tried to understand this whole new world and this whole new industry. So it was a very, very positive experience. And to this day, whenever I'm a cabaret singer, and sometimes they come to my shows. They came from California to support and help me. So to this day, and they continue to pitch my book. Even now, whenever they would go to different events and book fairs and whatnot, my book continues to be right there on the stand. So it was a very positive experience.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. All right. So, for our audience, if you do have questions, please do. If you put them in the chat, so we're gonna because I'm gonna. You have opportunity to ask questions, and that's very much part of this. All right. So anyway, so I want to know what happened with Javier. Did you get the money back? What happened with that?
Interesting. So I sued him,
Hmm.
and I won by default because he did not show up. And I then hired folks to go after him. And we found a bank account with money in it, and we grabbed it. And then he asked to set up a payment plan, but the expletives that came out of my mouth, we will not repeat. There was even someone else, he had an accomplice, and he just recently settled. So
Okay.
it worked out. It worked out in the sense that I was able to get some of my money back, but more importantly, I have this, it gave me the opportunity to connect with so many women who had similar experiences. I just met someone who married her scammer,
Ooh.
and he stole all of her pension money, and she had to move into a shelter. So it really gave me the opportunity to connect with women and talk about my story and my experience and how I got through it, to kind of help them inspire, motivate, encourage, whatever it is. So I actually look at it as the title of my keynote is The Gift of the Setback. And that was a setback that I was able to repurpose, if you will, as stepping stones to this amazing experience that I'm having just because of that story.
Right. You're talking about what they call your platform. Can you talk about? I mean, can you talk about the platform you had moving into the publishing process, and again, clearly between the coaching work you're doing, but also now that you're moving into keynotes, that
Right.
that platform is expanding.
Right. So prior to writing the book, I was working as a managing director for an international investment bank as the deputy head of human resources. And I worked for that bank for 25 years. They were based in Paris. So I spent a lot of time in the Paris office. And prior to that, I worked for Solomon Smith Barney. I worked for Maybon Securities. I worked for Prudential Securities. So I've been in the financial services industry for over 35 years. So when this all happened, I was working in my corporate job. And then in 2023, when I got this book deal, I retired and I focused on that. And that's when I built the coaching practice and and did my book tour and all the things. And now I am moving more into the keynote space. And it's pretty much, I combine keynoting and singing, believe it or not. When I do my keynote, I have a musician with me and I put in little songs and inspirational songs in there. So yeah, that's the platform that I've built so far.
Okay. How many clients do you have? How do you work with clients in life coaching?
But right now, I have maybe about close to 8 clients that I work with regularly. And I really, as an ICF certified coach, coaching, as you know, it's not therapy. I'm not helping you fix things that you need to address from your childhood. I'm trying to help you to move forward. So it's really creating a safe space for people to talk about their issues and to really help to motivate them with whether it's questions or whatever it is that they may need to help them move forward. And that's kind of what I do, in addition to acting and singing and book related stuff.
Do you include writing in what you do with your clients? Do you use this as a tool for that?
They read my book. They'll read the book, and then they'll ask, certain questions about, okay, tell me, let's talk about this experience for you, because it's all about that. A coaching situation for ICF, it's not about me. I am just there as a tool to help them move forward. But if that's what they want to do, that's what they do. So yeah, sometimes that will in fact come up.
Okay. Those are most of the questions I had. I'd like to get a sense of what the audience would like to know. You can if it's okay with Jocelyn, we can come off mute and ask a question.
Victoria, you have a question? You have to unmute.
And
Do you
it
wanna-
begins.
All right, you look for the unmute. Here, if I do this, maybe this will help. Can you find it? There you
There
are.
it is.
Yay, hi.
Sorry. Thank you, Sister Donna and everybody.
All right.
Blessings and shalom. I like how you said, Miss Donna, how to move forward from childhood to I'm paraphrasing to adulthood, or not, just moving past the past and being in the present and moving to the future. I'd like for you to speak a little bit more about that.
Sure. So I was born in Jamaica, West Indies, as those of you who have read the book, you know that. And my mom left me with her mother when I was only about 8 months old. And I lived with my grandmother in the Jamaican countryside till I was 14. And we were pretty poor. We didn't have, electricity. We didn't have indoor plumbing. I remember making numerous trips to the communal pipe with just to carry buckets of water so that we could have water to cook and bathe, what have you. And what I wanted more than anything was my mother, because I didn't know my mother. I definitely didn't know my father, but I yearned for my mother. And the few times that would visit, she was very, very cold and very, 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 very distant. And I just felt so unloved by her. And in the book, I talk about this one time my mother visited, and one morning, she woke us all up and said, "Everybody get dressed, get dressed." And we thought, my grandmother made this big breakfast, and then we got dressed, and we were all sitting on the veranda. And we were all, my sisters and I, my older sister and I, and my cousin Sherlock Holmes, for those who read the book. I was raised with a cousin by the name of Sherlock Holmes. And we're all talking among ourselves, and we're like, I wonder where we're going to go. Maybe we're going to go to the beach, or maybe we're going to go see a family member. God, we're really, really excited. Now, keep in mind that I'd been living with my grandmother by myself. My sisters were just visiting. And then about 20 minutes later, my mother appeared in the doorway, and she had luggage, and she had the luggage of my sister, and she had the luggage of my baby sister. And she said to my older sister, "Get your sister's hand," meaning my younger sister, "and let's go." And my mother just walked right past me. She did not say goodbye. She did not say, "I'll come back for you." She did not hug me. She did not say anything, just walked past me. And now she deliberately had me get dressed so I wouldn't suspect that I wasn't going as well. And I just remember that moment feeling so unworthy. And I think that stayed in my life. I kind of weaved that feeling of not being worthy into my life. And when I finally moved to the States at the age of 14, my mother absolutely hated me. My mother would say, I wished I'd flushed you in the toilet. Of all my children, I hate you the most. If you do get a husband, I hope he beats you. Things of that nature. So it was a lot of abuse. And I was also a bullied in high school. So that just kind of cemented this feeling that I had that if my mother could not love me, therefore I was not worthy of love. And and having to do the work when I moved into adulthood to finally realize that I have worth. I've always had worth and always will have worth. So I had to do the work to move from those childhood traumas to get into adult life and to take my power back. And a lot of the decisions that I made, I think I was looking for my dad, I was looking for my mother, I was looking for this love that was never there. So that's kind of what I meant when I said the childhood traumas and moving that into adulthood, if that answers your question.
Oh, thank you so much.
Surely.
Thank you.
Patty had a comment question. Patty said, or asked, Donna, what do readers tell you the greatest impact of your book is on them? What do they say you made them think about, showed them, or that they really needed your book to learn?
Very interesting. I think the common one was we all have childhood traumas. And quite often people finally realize that the way they think and the way they show up in their lives quite often are messages that they received, neurological imprints from messages they received as children. And when we're most vulnerable, when we're most impressionable, and we take that with us into adulthood. And a lot of people say to me, when I think about how I show up in my life, I realize that it's trauma that I'm dragging with me that I now need to kind of discard if I really want to free myself of the way I think and the way I show up in the world. That's probably the most common feedback I get from the book.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking about this for a long time. So I feel like you got such amazing like closure. I mean, it seems like it from the, like when you pick up a book and you're like so happy for the author because like, you got to tell your side of the story both in court, but also in this way that I feel like you were able to be heard. And I mean, do you have any, how is it satisfying? Like, how is there like a letdown? Like, how does it feel to have gotten this?
You know what? It was a terrifying endeavor to do this, to go public with this, because there was this element of shame that, and a lot of women who I talk to still say that. I had that experience, but I didn't want to talk about it. It was very, very freeing. And when I joined your class, Jocelyn, I wanted to write about this experience because that's what was at the forefront of my mind. But in the class, you had all these different prompts. And then I would like, oh, I want to talk about my childhood. And as I'm writing it, I am not really making the connection. But as we created more and more chapters, I was like, wait a minute. What I'm feeling now, what I felt in my 40s and my 50s is very similar to how I felt as a little girl, because I used to pray to my parents' pictures. In the book, I was so desperate for my parents that each night I would pray to their pictures because I would think that God could hear what I was led to believe God could hear, and he's not in the room, so maybe they could hear. And as I would pray to these pictures, I would try to prove my worth, why I was worthy to come to America with everyone else. And I would say I did my chores and I did my homework and I raised my hands in class and I raised my hand in class and I got the answer right. And I said my prayers. I'm a good girl. Are you going to come for me? Do you love me? Did you forget me? So I was carrying all this stuff with me. And when I started writing, I was writing these independent chapters, but they were easily woven together because it was really all part of the same thread, if that makes sense.
Patty had a follow-up question. I'm going to make a comment, and then I'm going to read her question. It strikes me, and I'm an abuse survivor myself, that what by choice and design with the publisher, the scam is taking precedence, but the abuse that preceded that, I mean, essentially it's all abuse, but you had that physical abuse as well, that laid a very negative foundation so that, Javier had a wide open door in some respects.
Yeah, I like to call myself low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
I was really ready to be picked because I thought I had done the work, but I was still looking for approval and validation, all the things that I desperately needed, but probably didn't realize I still needed.
Yeah. So Patty's question, do women bring their stories of financial scams or infidelity or crime to you?
They absolutely do. And because they feel as if, wow, she had the courage to talk about it, let me talk about it as well. And they all find it quite freeing. They say, I've never told anyone this, but... And because I had the courage, especially after I was on the Tamron Hall show and people saw me on the show, and I would get so many emails and Facebook messages from people from all over the globe who said this happened to me, whether it's a scam or whether it's domestic abuse, or whether it's just not being loved by a parent, whatever it is, wherever they see themselves in the story, quite often they do come to me. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Did you feel like having written the book, like you had space for that? Because it can be a lot, I think, getting all of that.
Yeah.
Some of them are hard stories. I'm sure it's like
Yeah.
can be a drain.
Yeah. No, I had space for that. I think my 30 plus years in human resources of just hearing crap on a regular basis and dealing with things, and it was so empowering for me to be able to do that with that story, because initially I thought, who wants to hear this? And when it resonated with people in the way that they did, it was very empowering for me. And that's why I now do keynote speaking, because I feel that it helps someone. I was just booking a hotel. I was going to speak in Maryland recently. And as I was booking the hotel, the woman who said she's from Taiwan, she said to me, oh, she's asking about the room. And she said, do you want king size bed? Do you want non-smoking? She's asking me all these basic questions. And then she said, I'm sorry, what is your name? And I said, Donna Hayes. And she says, would you by any chance be Donna Marie Hayes? And I'm like, yeah. She said, did you write that book, These Broken Roads?
Oh.
I did, yes. She said she walked into a bookstore and she was feeling very down and very sad because of whatever was going on in her life. And she said, I walked up to the counter and I said, I need something to encourage me. And the cashier said, get this book, which is crazy because I'm just speaking with this person just randomly. And that means so much to me, because the fact that this story is helping others find their way through whatever it is, even if it's for that moment, that temporary encouragement, inspiration, whatever it may be, it's worth it. It was worth it.
Stephen gave you a couple of compliments. I don't know that you saw them, but he said, I got to go on Zoom on the street, so I have to go. I couldn't wait for your chapters to be read in class. You brought me right into the scenes in the style of seasoned author. You are beyond a survivor. You are a dynamo and virtuoso. I miss the excitement of reading your chapters. Okay, I have to keep moving.
I hope he's still listening. I texted him just now. I was like, Donna's doing this. Because I think I had mentioned it.
It's the best time.
Luann's here too. We were like saying we have to get you in Prose Playground.
Yes, come on, Stephen.
Other questions from the community or comments?
I feel like this book is like, it's such a powerhouse. There's like so much going on in the story, and it's really remarkable.
You mentioned, okay, so you said that, I don't know when, but you decided to alternate the scenes, Jamaica to the present and New York City. So I've read it. I think it works, but I'm just curious, in your discussions, Jocelyn and Donna, I'm assuming that maybe based on that, I'm assuming that originally it was you're in Jamaica, grow up. Okay, we're in New York City. So when did you decide to alternate, and what did you hope to gain from doing that?
It was more of a creative process for me, because I thought it made it more interesting to start the chapter with, the dating, the online dating, and he's sitting at his dining room table in the Bronx, and my profile comes up, and I said, this is how I think it started. And then to go to Jamaica, I think I found intriguing. Justin, I don't know if you remember exactly how that came about, but I remember us talking about it's much more interesting that way. And that resonated with me, because people are going to be like, oh, okay, now I definitely want to read more to find out what happened. But here, what's happening here? And then towards the end, it all came together. So I think it just was it just evolved that way naturally.
Mm-hmm. Jocelyn?
Well, I guess, I mean, like a lot of you guys know like my narrative philosophies, but I tend to feel like a story where you're active and not a victim are more interesting as stories. I think that's sort of, I'm not alone in that. There's a lot of people that think that, but I feel like with Donna's story, there's this very obvious line in which she is not a victim. Like she just like is like, this is not happening again. And then we go back into these
Right.
sort of flashbacks to moments that either because she was a child or she was in circumstances that were beyond her control, there was a lot happening to her, which are compelling in that way that those stories are compelling, but they can't always carry narrative in the same with the same strength as a story where you're active. So I felt like it made a lot of sense to toggle between
Yeah.
those two times.
I remember that conversation, and it worked for me. I actually love that. I love.
It worked for me, and if I may say, I think, first of all, yes, you gave us a big hook at the beginning. You're reading about, he said this, he said that, and then you're in Jamaica, and I went, wait, what? Wait a minute, gotta read, did I miss something? Let me keep going. So it definitely was a huge hook there, and I would say that also it created empathy for me for what you were going through, to the degree that when Javier showed up, I was definitely having one of those, oh no, oh no. In you living your own life, you can't see it, and maybe it wouldn't have ended up that way, but you're going, oh God, can I turn one more page and what's it? No, God. So anyway, so definitely I was hooked.
I had more questions. If I can keep asking you questions about how satisfying revenge is. But I am sort of curious, like, so I know your mother read it, right? Your mother read this book?
Oh.
Oh, she didn't read it. Okay.
She did not read it, and I don't think she wanted to read it. She said she wanted to read it, but then, my mom passed away in November of 2024, and after she passed away, my sister found a letter hidden deep in her dresser drawers, a letter that was addressed to me, which she apologized for, all hidden behind a lot of biblical scriptures, because my mother was a very religious person. But in essence, she was actually apologizing because she knew exactly what she had done. And when I told my dad said, yeah, she knew exactly what she was doing, but I can't tell you over the phone. And I was like, okay. So my sister and I made a trip to Tamarack, Florida, where my dad lived. We went in January, and my dad told me why my mom had such hatred for me. My dad's side of the family, my great-grandmother was white, and my grandmother was very fair complexion with like green eyes, and lighter complexion was very revered. And when my older sister was born, my older sister was fair-skinned. And although they didn't really like my mother, they accepted my sister. But when I was born and I was darker skinned, they convinced my dad that I was not his because of my complexion. And my mom loved my dad so much that I was this thing in the way, this dark-skinned thing in the way. And that's why I was banished, if you will, to the countryside. And that's why she detested me so much. And to have that closure and that clarity, because I did not know those things while writing the book. So just things that I've discovered since writing the book. And my dad said when he read the book, it destroyed him because he carries a certain amount of guilt himself for he's never part of our lives. He never helped us. He never supported us financially in any way, shape, or form. And to have that context and that clarity only like 6 months ago, and I just turned 64 years old, is quite interesting, but also quite freeing, because now it all makes sense. If that helps.
And
When did you write? Sorry, I'm sorry. Sorry, Jocelyn, go ahead.
Sorry, just one more quick follow up along these lines. So did you ever hear from anybody who like knew Javier or maybe like was going to get involved with him that like your book sort of warned them, or did anything like
Well,
that?
I didn't use his real name.
Okay.
That is not his real name. His real name is Tommy Montalvo. I would be interested, but I did not use his real name, so they probably would not have made the connection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But he had a girlfriend all along.
Right.
She was a teacher, and she was all a part of this.
Oof.
Yeah. It's a well-calculated scheme.
Wow. Some people have a lot of audacity. It's amazing, to say the least. I don't want to take over from again our audience. Do anybody else have questions? So I want to make sure you have the opportunity.
They can also be like about the writing process or working with a
Yes.
hybrid publisher or any of that stuff. I feel like some of you guys are working in similar just trauma or, stories, telling hard
I
stories.
mean, even I mean, again, writing process. It may sound small, but like so you've got you at least when you were writing this, you had a pretty big job. So and you were singing cabaret. So
Yeah.
when did you write? When do you write? How what is your writing day? I mean, like for me, I tend to like I'm finishing something, so it tends to be like a push. But it's just in the regular course of days, it's an hour or so. But if I'm pushing for a goal, then I put a lot of energy in that. Or were you just like one of those 5 a.m. people?
No, I would write whenever I felt inclined to do so. I just thought of something, and I would stop everything to the extent I could. Even sometimes if I'm in the office, I would just jot things down on my computer or write stuff on my laptop. So I didn't have that structured of a process. Whenever I felt, oh my God, I want to write this, I want to say this, I want to shift this, I want to, that's when I would do it. And then I would get caught up in, and hours would pass, and and that it was not that structured of a process for me at all.
But it got done.
It got done. And I have lots of journals because I've been journaling since the early 90s, and I still have my journals. So that helped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I even have my report cards from when I was 11 and 12, and I was just looking through the report cards, and there were 35 students in the class, and I was consistently number 33 or number 34. I was at the bottom of the class, and the teacher's notes would be like, Donna needs to do better, Donna needs to show up, Donna needs to participate, Donna is not engaged. And it's so interesting as I think about 11-year-old me and what I was feeling at that moment. I shared a dorm with Miss Jamaica, who was this beautiful young girl, and one of the top athletes and one of the smartest kids in our class. And then there was me. And I just felt like I did not belong. And, during the holidays, their parents would come and take them home for the holidays, and no one would come to pick me up because my grandmother didn't drive. She was older, and I would just stay there on campus until everyone returned. So, I was struggling. I was struggling even at that time, and to read my report cards and to sometimes I sit with the younger version of myself. That's why I wrote that song. Mm-hmm. It's a love story to the younger version of myself, to say it's going to be okay. And I think that was probably the most surprising thing for me, is how important the younger version of myself came as part of this story, as part of the narrative, because everything came from her. Mm-hmm. She evolved, and I evolved from her. Mm-hmm. And it was very freeing to sit with her and to say, that's just part of my healing, that the younger version of myself. That's probably one of the more powerful things, even though the scam and the mother and the this, but I think of that little girl and the loneliness and what she felt. That's very powerful for me. And sometimes I just go, and I narrated the book also. I
listened to you.
I did.
Yes, I did.
And it's, I always go back to that part, whether it's with my the chicken blood story, or the, me busting my head, and whatever it was. Just, I like to be present quite often in her life at that time, because it's very powerful to me and healing at the same time.
Patty had another comment. I'm working on a book comparable to Donna's story, and my client slash the author is ready to write the book, but not to go public with a website and social media. When did talking about the book's content become a comfortable part of your life and public persona?
After it was published, there was no turning back. After it was published and it was out there, and the publisher, they had this campaign and of getting me on these talk shows and getting me on these radio shows and podcasts. That was all part of the deal, that I would participate in that, and I was willing to do that. But after it was written and it was now public, I had to embrace that, and I was ready for that. And people would send me notes. Oh my God, what happened? What happened? What happened? I would say, read the book. And so, once you go, if you decide not to publish it, then you can write it and have, if it was healing for you to go through that process, fine. But if you're going to write a book that's going to be published, it's out there now. And it's actually quite freeing, but it depends on one's appetite for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else?
Was there a part of the book that you found harder to write than others? Like, was there something that was just really hard to get on the page?
Going to the bank.
No. I'm sorry. It was like another moment where I was like,
I think two things: going to the bank and getting all that cash, believing I was buying a house, because a cash transaction would be cheaper. That part was difficult. The domestic abuse part was hard. Leaving Cheyenne was awful. And that the other part that was hard, the fact that he convinced me that his mother had died. Mm-hmm. And sent, a picture of her in her coffin. We still don't know who was in the coffin, but it wasn't her. And this is a person that spent every weekend with me. He met my family. I met his family. I met his sister. I met his cousin. I met his son. I met all this. And he would FaceTime with my daughter every Sunday, because she lives on the West Coast. And met my sister, met my nephews and everything. But I wanted to tell the truth. I was not going to sugar. This is what happened, and this is what I fell for, and it was very freeing not to say, okay, I am just going to be selective and share parts of it that may not be as harsh, maybe a little easier for people to swallow. Now, I decided if I'm going to write it, I'm going to write all of it, and I'm extremely happy that I did.
Did he ever reach out to you or in any way, like, try to get you to not write the book?
No, he reached out once he realized I was going to sue him. He reached out. He called my lawyer and told my lawyer that I gave him the money as a gift, all $183,000 worth of it, and also said that if I were to go after him legally, that he would call my company and tell them that I shared confidential HR information with him. And I was like, go for it, because I know I would never in a million years do that. That's the only time he reached out. And then towards the end, when we grabbed his bank account and he called to say, tell Dawn I have kids to feed. And that I'd like to set up a payment plan with her. I'll give her $180 per week. I'm like, no, grab all of it. And so that was, I've never spoken. He would go through my lawyer. I've never spoken with him directly.
Amazing.
But it turns out well, guys. I decided to go back on a dating site.
Okay.
But I was much more educated and informed in 2019, and I met the most amazing man, and Monday will be 7 years together.
Okay.
And what was so, and continues to be very interesting for me, is this man he doesn't need anything from me. He has his own cars and his own this and his own that. And I've never traveled as much. I've never been happier. And it was difficult for me to say, well, what's his agenda? Because it was difficult for me to believe that someone could just love me for me as opposed to, have this hidden agenda because they want something. And he's a retired police officer, and he's incredibly caring. And I finally found my person. I had to kiss a few frogs and ex-cons, but I found my person finally. So it does end. It ended really well, and I'm completely happy finally in a healthy relationship, the first of my
It's
life.
interesting that after, as in the book, you write so much about wanting to be loved and desiring this love from mother, from others. Then when it appeared, you're like, what?
Yeah, what is that? So foreign. It is so foreign. Like, why are you opening the door, and why are you showing up with flowers, and why do I have all this jewelry and these gifts, and I just did my show on April 24th at the Cutting Room, and he took my flyer and he made 40 T-shirts to give to the audience, and had them all folded. And as each person came in, he's just really very, 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 very thoughtful man. And I suffer from insomnia, except when I'm at his place. It is. And that makes me emotional because I finally found someone that is my safe place to fall. So.
Are you working on, I know you've talked about your coaching, and clearly that's a passion.
Yeah.
Are you working on the next thing?
Well, I'd love to work on fiction, a fiction piece, and Joss and I, we've talked about that, but nothing else right now. I have a Substack. That's the extent of it right now. Yeah, but I'm not actually working on something.
Will you put it in the chat so we can follow?
Yeah. I assume you enjoy doing Substack. For some people, every other pundit is saying you must have. Are you doing it because you must, or do you enjoy doing that? And what kinds of things do you talk about in your Substack?
I talk about whatever is heavy on my heart that day. I talked about one of my articles. It's titled Things. And it's when my mother passed away, and just to look around her house with all her things that she'd never see again, and things messages she would never answer, and the Bible she'd never read again, and the puppy she'd never say hi to again. And how quite often we get so caught up in things. It's really not about things. It's really about the memories and the love you make and the love you share and the love you give. Inspirational talks like that. I talk about, experiences that I've had with different people who have taught me different lessons in life. I have one called The Taxi Driver, and that's about, I live on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, which is considered an affluent neighborhood. And I got in a taxi one evening, and I gave the taxi driver my address, and he said, it was a white driver, and he said, "Where do you live?" And I gave him my address, and he said, "Well, how do you live there?" And I said, "I don't understand the question. What do you mean, how do I live?" He said, "Well, it's such a nice neighborhood. How do you live there?" And I said, "I'm not sure I understand the question, but I live there the same way anyone else would live there." And my initial instinct was, let me out of your cab, and I'm not going to ride with you the rest of the way. And then I thought, why should I stand in the dark because you're an idiot? So he dropped me off, and I went upstairs seething. And the next day, I am telling everyone about this experience. And that very night, I went to another show, but in Lincoln Center. And I came out, and there's a line of taxi, a really long line, because all the shows were ending around the same time. And I remember wrapping myself in my sweater, and I'm like standing and creeping until I finally got into a taxi. I waited like 20 minutes, and it was the same driver.
No, you have got to write that story.
It was the same driver. I got in the cab, and I gave him my address, and he says, "I remember you." And I said, and I remember you now. What are the odds? Thousands and hundreds of thousands of taxis in New York City. And I stood on this line. It had to be orchestrated in such a divine way that I got in the same taxi the very next night, different part of the city. And I said, well, God, okay, what is the purpose of this? And I decided it was my opportunity to forgive, because it was what he said was very hurtful. And there was an element of contrition, and, you know, he dropped me off, and I said, have a good life. And you do the same. Stories like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, I have, like, my hairs are standing up.
Well, Jocelyn, you know about the woman dying in my arms on the subway. You know that story.
Yes. Oh.
And how that all played out. So stories like that. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe everyone that's on this call, that's listening right now, you're on here because it's supposed to be something. It was designed that way. So.
I want to make sure that Jocelyn, I don't know if there's we have a couple of minutes if I'm looking at this right. Is there anything you want to mention that's other than thanking Donna? Thank you. I want to make sure there's time for you to mention.
Thank you. I will quickly mention a couple things. I just mentioned next month's book is Asylum. I just put the Amazon link in the chat, but it's Judy Bolton Fastman's book about her mother, their immigration story. I don't know, identity story. I've heard it. I haven't read it yet, but I've heard it's really beautiful. That's our conversation next month. So even if you can't read it, she's coming. You know, it's fun to just listen in on these conversations, I think. And then, I mean, I'm about to send out the newsletter, which is everything going on in June. I know some of you guys know we're doing this book launch program. We're rolling it out. I really feel like it's going to change how book launches are done. So if you know anybody who have books coming out, even to just come to the Q&As, which are free, I really recommend it. So let me know if you want me to give you anything to pass along to people, or if you yourself want to come. And then if you haven't signed up for Anne Lamott, that's on June 10th. And I feel like it's going to be like this, like we're going to be able to like chat with her in this way. So I really hope you guys will all sign up for that. And I think that's everything. But Donna, first of all, so amazing to see you. Thank you for this.
It was great. It was great to see you in, where were we? Maryland.
Yeah, at the AWP. Yep.
AWP. Amazing.
So thank you for this. And Janina.
Me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for honoring me with this opportunity to talk to you guys. I really, really, truly appreciate it.
Thank you for the book.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Good night, everybody. See you all soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.